Good afternoon, marine biology class. We're in Mr. Bennett's backyard here on a nice sunny day, and we're going to go over some basic fish biology. We're going to just talk about basic parts of a fish. I think we've talked about this already this year, but we're going to go over it real quick. And then we're going to talk more specifically about different fish shapes and different fin types and stuff like that. So let's start with just the basic fish. And just, you probably know most of this. Let's start with right here, this area here, we call it the operculum. It's also called the gill cover. And this line right here would represent the opening of the gill. So most bony fish have only one gill opening. And so that would be the operculum. And then this right here is called the lateral line. And this is the snout. This is the, I'm going to call this the lower jaw. And obviously the eye. And then the different fins. We have the tail fin here, also called the caudal fin. Caudal fin or the tail fin. This little area right here that connects the tail to the body, right in this area right here, is called the caudal peduncle. That's like if you were going to grab a fish like this, you'd be grabbing by the caudal peduncle. Then we have the other fins. The dorsal fin, divided into two parts. So you have the spiny part. You can see the spines here. And then the other part of the dorsal fin has soft rays that are like spines, but they're soft and they're not pokey. Then we have the pectoral fin. Actually, there's two of them, one on each side. Then over here is the anal fin. And this is the pelvic fin. And there's two of those also, one on each side. And let me see, I think that's it for now. Those are the basic parts of a fish. Now we're going to take a look at fish shapes, body shapes of fish. So there are going to be 5 that we're going to go over here. Now it will be helpful when you do this assignment if you were to print out these pictures from your Google assignment, and then you can just add to them as I'm going over this. So we'll start with the body shapes. Anguilliform means eel-like. So any fish that's shaped like an eel is called anguilliform. Then you have your basic fish, like a bass or a rockfish that you've seen on our field trip a long time ago. That would be called compressed. Just your basic, like a goldfish. It's sort of compressed in like this. Compressed in. Just a basic fish shape thing. This would probably be a compressed fish also. And then sometimes fish have a more of an oval shape, and that's called ovate. A good example of that would be like a triggerfish. Possibly this angelfish too. Then we have fusiform, which is a streamlined type fish. Usually those are fast swimmers, and they're shaped like a torpedo that goes through the water very efficiently. That would be a fusiform fish. Then we have depressed means. Depressed means, so this is a picture of a stingray called a bat ray. So these fish swim like this. And so depressed means that they're flat and they lay on the bottom like this. That's what depressed means. So rays and skates and flatfish like halibut and sand dabs and sole and stuff like that are all depressed. Okay? So Those are the different body shapes. Okay, then we'll go over the tail types. So there are 5 tail types that I've identified. There may be more, but we're just going to go with these 5. There is indented, which is like this one. Rounded. Is this one rounded? Yeah, I would say this is rounded. Square, just straight down. Then there's forked, come out like that. A forked tail. And then there's double truncate, which is pretty rare, but it has sort of, instead of being indented, it's sort of indented twice. California halibut is one good example of that around here. So those are the 5 tail types. Okay. Then let's take a look. Oh, wait a minute. Hold on, Mr. Bennett. You missed a couple of tail types. Sorry about that. Okay, these are important ones. There's heterocircle, which means that the upper lobe is longer than the lower lobe of the tail. And that is seen sometimes in some species of sharks. What's left of this tail, you can see that the upper lobe is much taller than the lower lobe. And there are a few other fish that have that. Then there's the lunate tail, which is shaped like a crescent moon. And those are usually very efficient swimmers like tuna and billfish, marlin and sailfish, things like that. So that's a lunate tail. Okay, so that's it for the tail types. Looks like there's 7 of them. Okay. And we have mouth types. And we're going to go with 5 mouth types for our class. And we'll start with terminal. Terminal just means that the mouth, the upper and lower jaw both end at the end of the head. They're both sort of lining up like that. Versus something like the overhanging snout. This would be like an anchovy where the snout overhangs the lower jaw like that. And then sometimes the lower jaw sticks out farther than the snout. That would be, we'll call that lower jaw projecting. Okay. Then we have something like a tubular snout, where some fish have this. A common example would be like a seahorse or a pipefish, where they have sort of almost like a straw on the end of their head. And then there's, of course, the sword or the beak or the bill, like in the fish that we have on the wall in class, the sailfish. Oh, wow. And one last thing is a couple other things. There are pelvic fins can be arranged in 2 different ways. In one case, we call it thoracic, when the pelvic fins are near the head. And if the pelvic fins are back further on the body, sort of on the stomach of the fish, then they're called abdominal. An example of an abdominal fish, a fish with abdominal pelvic fins, would be this here. The pelvic fins are way back here on the body, not up near the head, versus, well, these ones don't really have those fins. And then there are 2 other things I want you to know about. And one is finlets, which are these little tiny fins that are found between the dorsal fin and the tail and the anal fin and the tail. Little tiny fins, finlets. And then one other fin that some fish have, usually trout and salmon, and some other types have it. It's called an adipose fin. It's sort of a round fin behind the dorsal fin, and it's kind of fatty. That's what adipose actually means, fatty. And I guess that's it for this lesson, and hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you for tuning in. Bye-bye.